Welcome back to the Sniff Session. This is a podcast hosted by me, Valerie, also known as the Niche Sampler, and we talk about perfume and the industry and my thoughts on different things. So if you, like that one person who commented recently that there's too much talking, are confused, this is what it is. I will say though, on Spotify, where I also host this podcast, the AI creates these automatic chapters. So perhaps if you want to get to a specific section, it might serve you to go there. Because next time somebody comments there's too much talking on a literal podcast, I won't be so courteous. I have this tea. I just bought this tea strainer, and it's from Dalle, which is a Parisian tea house. And it's very cute. It's got this little tea box on the side, and I don't know what tea this is. And yes, I'm in my robe because it is quite cold in my apartment, and I refuse to put the heating on until December because it's expenny. There has to be hibiscus in here, maybe some rose and some black tea. It's this gorgeous deep red color, which is kind of my current El Dorado. I'm looking for a deep red perfume that isn't necessarily a rose. And it needs to be more serious than just a bright red fruit. I want it to be somewhat natural smelling and not super synthetic. So yeah, if anybody has any leads on that, let me know. I do know that it is not necessarily a cherry fragrance either. So yes, I have a very picky request, and that is it. I've got so many thoughts, so many things to say. First, let's start with what I've been wearing lately, which is a box that I have, things I've been wearing, trying, layering that I love. I'm sorry if you hear children in the background, I don't know what's going on. So, first things first, Frassaï Dormir Al Sol. I've been leaning more into this travel size that they sent me. It's so lovely. I love Rosa Sacra, which is my meditation fragrance because it's so meditative and grassy and natural smelling. This one still has the grassy, natural smelling elements, but it also has this very happy sunshine in a bottle aspect as well. I think it's because of the mimosa there. It's honeyed, it's yellow. It's like sunsets to me. And the actual concept of the fragrance is sleeping under the sun. And it's just lovely. And I've really been enjoying that. And Julia, who goes by Julia Elmer on TikTok, said that florals are for winter, and I think I must agree because the other fragrance I've been wearing lately a lot is Tubereuse Astrale by Maison Crivelli. This is a gorgeous, luminous tuberose. It's got leathery facets. It's got green facets. It is also impossibly chic. Also, this made me eat my words about Hedion because it's an aroma chemical that I usually don't appreciate. This has oodles of this stuff, but I think it works here. Here it allows this quite dense extrait de parfum formulation to, to travel a bit more. So I think that I see its place. I see the dosage in here, but somehow it's not as disturbing as I find in other fragrances. So yeah, suppose if you're going to use a Hedion overdose, make sure you make it an extrait de parfum, I guess, for me. And then I also got in my first ever PR from this brand, from Versatile, which is La Fonce Dalle. Literally a fragrance that's supposed to smell like beer, Mary Jane, and chicken. Now, I have not eaten chicken in many years, but when it opens up, it does have quite a chicken skin scent. There's sage in there that makes me feel like the herbs you use with a roast chicken. And then it kind of dries down more musky and buttery and kind of sweet. I think this is kind of specific oil that they're using to make these oil fragrances that has a distinct smell itself, and that kind of comes through. And then the deep sage herby Mary Jane scent is also in there, but only if you like dig your nose into it. It's not necessarily gonna have you smelling like you've just had a session as you walk in the streets. And this is like the fun perfumery that I'm excited about, which is also something that I need to mention in the next segment when I talk about the rise and resurgence of the designers that are serious about perfumering. But I think that this direction of fun fragrances you won't find necessarily everywhere is probably a good direction for niche houses to be going in, because the competition is on the line, and I think that we're gonna see the landscape of fragrance change within the next year a lot, I think. I also got in my PR from Jijide, and it's Fuoco and Terra that I spoke about before. And I've always found with this brand that the full bottles smell somewhat different from the samples, and not terribly different, but I think it's just having the juice in concentration. And Fuoco, which is the smoky one, kind of reminds me on my skin when I first wear it, it reminds me of roasted chestnuts, and it's so delicious and divine. But then in the dry down, it gets so smoky that all you smell is smoke. You smell like leftover charred wood after a barbecue, and so it's not something that I'm going to be wearing or reaching for a lot, and it's going to be hard to rehome. But I think that there is a deep smoky fragrance lover that will appreciate this, or on whom it might perform differently. But I've been playing around with that. But what I've been loving wearing and layering with things is Terra. This is the one that is scented after African sunsets. It is very herbaceous on my skin now. Before it was more earthy, but now I feel it's more spiced and aromatic. It's vibrant. The oud in there is fantastic. It's not a deep barnyardy oud. It's just like kind of it feels like a younger oud. It feels almost like a resin. And I love this alone, but I think in terms of making it more my character, I've loved pairing it with Une Rose, actually. This is a lovely rose that's spiced, it's sweet, I think this is the rose for the people who want to love Delina but can't, like me, and this is what I've been pairing with Terra, and it's so fantastic. The spices in Terra really add depth and dimension to this rose, and yeah, I've really been loving that combination. I've also been really tearing it up with my 402 from Parfumeur, because this has been kind of my trench coat scent, or just, I don't know if anybody else does this, but whenever I leave the house, no matter when last I put fragrance on, I need to spray something just to refresh myself. And so I've been refreshing myself with 402 by Parfumeur, which has been delicious. A new fragrance that is part of the Javoy samples that I picked up, that I really put on, which might be an important stop on my hunt for the perfect vetiver, because something terrible happened. I took out my sample of Capua by Lectimus, which has been on my wish list. I even posted a recent wish list with it on it. I sprayed it on myself, but then I was like, oh no. Something happened to my nose and my preferences. The same thing happened with the Portofino from Victoria Beckham. There is a sugariness. I don't know if there's a specific amberwood that's been used. There's this sugariness that comes through that ruins it for me. It smelled too synthetic. So now I'm again on a hunt for a good vetiver. So I picked up, I don't even know why I picked this up, but this is a scent called White Fury by Parfum Büro. And this has got a lot of things going on inside of it, but I smell this gorgeous nutty vetiver. And it also has quite bright citruses in the opening, but this isn't something like the Majestic Vetiver or Bal d'Afrique, which is more of a citrus than a vetiver. This one is more of a vetiver, but you still get the nuances of a bergamot in the opening. And it's fantastic. I also sprayed this on my trench coat the other day. It smelled so luxe and expensive. I did feel that people would assume this was more masculine, but I think that when girls wear more masculine fragrances, it's kind of hot. So love that. And also I revisited Sirène by Frassaï Bois. This is their cherry scent, and this is the scent where I say that they're having an identity crisis, because it didn't seem like a scent profile that Frassaï Bois would make. But in the winter time, because I initially smelled it in summer, this is way more interesting. I find that it has a richer woodiness to it. Apparently they don't elect to put the notes onto their little packaging, but this is so good. It's more woody, it's richer. I think I even feel it being more spiced. Do I think that this is better than my Griti Duchessa? No, but I mean, they're actually maybe on par. But I already have the perfect cherry, so I don't need to invest in this, but I will enjoy wearing the sample. And then there's a layering combination that I hesitated sharing because one of the elements is a fragrance that I bought before I was on Perfume Talk and before I realized this brand for what it is. But of course, I'm not going to throw away fragrance, but a combination of a marshmallow fragrance essentially is what it is, and Gabar's Lull. Yeah, it's Lull season, people. Lull and Ground will be the stars of this autumn, I think. Or they should be, if you have any taste. No, I'm joking. If you like sandalwood, though, I think you will enjoy them. So I've been wearing Memo's Sintra. I've had this for years. I fell in love with it in 2020 when I was living on my friend's couch in Paris before I moved to Switzerland. And it's just a really dense orange blossom marshmallow. So I think this combination will also work with Love Don't Be Shy, with Guimauve de Noël, with Dolce & Gabbana, whatever fragrance they make, the one that's the same scent profile. So that, and you mix it with Lull, but directly on top of each other on skin. You first do the marshmallow, then you do Lull. Intoxicating. And then that on skin, and then on top I use a specific fragrance which I cannot talk to you about yet, but I can say though it is the new Electimus, and that is just a gourmand dream. I mean, the gourmand being the Memo and the Lull. I can't tell you what the new fragrance adds, but it adds, okay? That's all I can say. So yeah, that's what I've been wearing lately. But I've been thinking again about designers and what they are doing, because obviously being the niche sampler, I'm not a designer girl, but I'm being forced to interact more with them because I think they're starting to get interesting. So first, technically Lancôme isn't a designer house because they're a beauty brand and they don't have a fashion line as far as I know. So, but they are still part of the mass market arena. And I was invited to a workshop for their private line, which is the Les Absolus collection. And what they've done is, okay, first of all, this was my first ever PR invite in Switzerland. And yeah, that was quite significant because I enjoy meeting the Swiss influencers just to see who they are and what they're like. And I've felt as a creator very separate from the Swiss influencer market because well, I don't know why. I haven't been interacting with them and being invited to these spaces. I've found largely that they're more Instagram driven. So they would pick their talent from Instagram as opposed to TikTok. And so I never expected to be included this early because, I mean, my Instagram is growing, but very slowly. But it was very exciting to be invited, and they've essentially created this entire, I think is risky, but I think it's artistically creative, an entire line of fragrances centered around the rose centrifulia. Now, there are two major roses used in perfumery. There's the damask rose or Rose de Messina, the Turkish rose, and then the rose centrifulia. And the centrifulia I found is more fruity, more citric, slightly more green. And then the damask rose is that deep, jammy, bold rose that you'll typically find in most fragrances. And in fact, it's actually that rose that I find turns magazine-like sometimes. And so every single fragrance contains rose centrifulia at the heart. Now, there is a little bit of bull marketing in my mind because they say that they've abandoned the olfactive pyramid, but instead they are using a halo architecture for the scent. So at the heart there's a specific combination, and then everything else orbits the specific heart. So the centifolio is the heart, and then everything else orbits it. I smelled all 11 of them. My friend Amanda was there, who's Amanda Soigné on social media, Soigné, and also here on YouTube, or on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify. And also talk about perfumes there. Chloe, she's really lovely. We've interacted before we met in Paris at Givaudan. And it was really lovely, just in a small intimate space with the workshop director and smelling through the stuff. And they were really kind and lovely. And I got sent home with some goodies. They sent we got some macarons from La Durée, which I unfortunately couldn't eat because they are not plant-based. And they also gave this beautiful diffuser and some little cosmetics in a really lovely pouch. So that was fantastic. And they also sent us some samples. And yeah, it was a lovely event. But the entire notion of this entire line of fragrances centered around a singular note, I thought was such an interesting risk, and that will make them stand out, because I think that if there is a brand claiming to have the best quality extraction of a particular note, if somebody is going to look for a fragrance with this note because of the marketing, that is something that might be an initial point of contact if you think about it. For those who loved Oud Bouquet, because now, of course, Maison Lancôme, which had the Oud Bouquet, which had Santal Cardamom, that's gone. But Oud Bouquet is retained. It's just got a new name, but it's still there in its golden color, and it's exactly the same formulation. So Lancôme knows what works, and they're keeping their bestseller and fan favorite. But I got sent, the latest edition of French Vogue, and their beauty line, or they have the beauty edit, and they usually have a fragrance edit within the beauty pages. And Mélanie Noche is the editor for the fragrance section, and she's excellent. She's brilliant. The last 3 issues, she's included a lot of niche fragrances and high-end brands, which I feel is befitting of Vogue. I think I've told the story before, but my self-care as a little teenager would be to have my parents drop me off at the specific mall. If you're from Cape Town, I used to go to Cavendish Square, and I would go to the exclusive books, which is in the basement, and I would sit at the Seattle coffee with a little iced coffee, and I would pour my way through all of the international Vogues and stare at the features and the fashion, and that was my little treat. So now being in my little... And then I subscribed to British Vogue for a while. It was uninspiring, but French Vogue is inspiring. And it has that same appeal that I appreciated from the American Vogue and international Vogues I would pour through in my little South African adolescence. And so this feature for October is Sillage Couture. And all of the fragrances featured are designer fragrances, every single one of them. But it feels like the designers are really leaning into their private lines. For instance, like Louis Vuitton, they don't have a fragrance that you can just buy in like a low-end department store. Like they only have their high line, which I find interesting. So now Loewe has a more expensive line. Courage, their perfumes are, I think, more accessible. They always do feel niche though. They've released something new called Hyper Iris. And I mean, this one's more expensive. It's $200 for 100 ml or $195, always round up. And also, of course, we have the Louboutin, which have a new packaging. They have like that super sharp pointy lid that looks like the nail polishes that they came out with a couple of years ago. And of course, we saw Fendi being launched earlier this year. I think Josephine of Jus de Rose was invited to Italy to smell everything with Canton Biche and all of the fancy perfumers. But something new that I didn't know is that Balmain are also releasing their own private line. And Olivier Roustan worked with, who's the creative director and designer at Balmain, he worked with Givaudan to create his new collection, and apparently they've been working on it for a couple of years, and people have already stopped and asked him his sillage. Apparently his current signature scent is a rosy musk fragrance. So I just hope that, I mean, we're definitely getting private line and luxury fragrance quality, but I hope that we're going to get the same innovation that we get from the niche market. But if not, I think that that still allows an opportunity for niche brands, because I just think it's going to be harder and harder as the years come on to start a successful fragrance brand. But I mean, what isn't mentioned in this Vogue, because the news did not come out until recently, is the new Bottega Veneta fragrances. They have literally not broken the internet, but I have seen fashion creators, design creators, architecture creators all talking about the new Bottega Veneta fragrances. In fact, my friend who is an interior designer sent me the link, and I always love it when my friends send me perfume stuff, because I probably already saw it. But what they've done is they are releasing a line of fragrances that are in these glass blown Murano glass-esque shapes. To be fair, they do look like the poop emoji, I'm not gonna lie, but in a chic way. They all come with a green marble base as a stand, because of course one has to have a marble stand for their fragrances, and then they have a cap. My friend Maria sent me a video, a concept video, and it was like deconstructing the bottle and all of the elements. What I didn't see was a sprayer, but I did see the riveting that you see on things that you can unscrew. So I suspect that these are refillable, because if somebody's going to pay $450 for a fragrance with this beautiful design, I think they don't want to keep purchasing it for $450 if they already have the beautiful design. So making a refillable scent makes sense in this regard. So I think seeing all of the designers leaning into their fragrance lines makes sense, because if you follow fashion creators and you know that the fashion world is struggling, one, we're figuring out all of them are scammers. Like Dior is basically creating those book bags for $50 and selling them to you for thousands, and they're using slave labor to do so. Haha. And I think YSL is in a RICO case. I think Hermès has I don't remember what the specific legal term is, but there's also somebody who is suing them because of their system. And so I think it makes sense that they would want to lean into a cosmetic that people are willing to spend money for, that association that isn't also thousands and thousands of bucks. Which is also why the lower end designer brands, I think, are thriving, because if you can buy a handbag that has a designer association with it for a couple of $100s, then I think that that's more accessible, especially as we go into further and further economic decline in the world. And yeah, so that was really interesting to me, and it made me think about what will make a successful niche house in this environment, in this climate. And I think that, like I said, people like Versatile, who are, I mean, they have the French moniker, right? If you're a French perfume house, people already think it's luxe, especially because if people are not living in Europe or living in France, the association with Paris is always going to be appealing. And that's why some brands that aren't even in Paris have Paris on their bottles. Also, for instance, I found out that Liquide Imaginaire makes their fragrances in Italy. Wild. Or at least some of them. So things like this, Beer, Weed and Chicken, grabs attention. They are also at a very accessible price point. And what they've done well as well is partnering with the correct institutions, in my opinion. So like Versatile, you're going to find them more in a concept store than you would in a big box store, because I think that they know who their customer is. Also, because if you're going into a concept store, it's got things of different price ranges, and then you see this little roll-on fragrance that smells interesting and unique and good, that you know you can pop into your carry-on, and it's like $50-$60. Winner. I also think brands like Gabar, who have very strong branding, are going to do well. I think that they probably came onto the market at the exact correct time. So I definitely see that people are going to get over fragrance in the next couple of years. I think that because the market is so saturated, I think that people are going to lose their integrity. Not integrity, but I think people are going to lose interest in keeping up because it's just going to be so overwhelming. Because, I mean, if you are a creator, when was the last time you spoke about something that you didn't receive in PR? I didn't mean for the pause to be so pregnant, but I mean, it's not that everybody only speaks about things that they receive in PR, but that is the majority of the For You page on TikTok and also your feed on Instagram. I think that people who can discuss curations probably don't only talk about PR, and also podcasts also are more varied. And I also see people leaning more into legacy brands and traditional houses. So I've seen a resurgence of Serge Dutton a lot on my timeline. I really want to explore his scents. But unfortunately, the Discovery set doesn't ship to Switzerland the last I checked. But I think that there are places where I could sample his stuff. I just wish that they came in sprayers. Who else will I think will be successful? I think brands like Obvious will do well because their founders are really well entrenched in the industry. Like David Frossard, who founded Obvious, also is the co-founder of Liquide Paris, that boutique I love in Paris. He's also a co-founder in Liquide Imaginaire. So a lot of these brands have like good VC behind them. So I think those brands will do well, and brands like Ex Nihilo will continue to do well, and Maison Crivelli will continue to do well. But if you're somebody new, if you're somebody like Jijide, you need to just find your market. And I think Jijide has, because they have their personality line, which is more of a lighter, fresh line, which I think is more suited to the Asian market. And I think that that's what's going to do well for them. But I also think that this dialogue collection is so unique and specific that this will also draw in a particular niche customer, and I think that this will also drive good success for them. And I hope it does drive success for them because the design is impeccable, the scents are intriguing, and they're also platforming new unknown perfumers and creatives, which I also think is important. And plus I think I unboxed them on both TikTok and Instagram. Their packaging is just phenomenal. It's a proper experience. And that's why I love it when designers get into perfumery. What else did we want to talk about? Yeah, I think that's all the yapping I had to do today. I'm going to have a sip of tea. And we can move on to the sniff session. Speaking of the Asian market, I recently was sent a discovery set from Denim. I was really struggling between doing Denim or Francesca Bianchi today, and Denim won solely because they have blotters in the discovery set that are pre-labeled. That is literally it. Also though, if you are on YouTube, look at this ring. Look at this ring I got. So pretty. I'm getting into demi-fine jewelry. So this is gold vermeil. It's this little shop I found on Etsy from Turkey, and it has just a little eye on it, and it's this perfect little pinky ring. I bought a ring sizer a while ago, and I wrote down the measurements of all my fingers, and so I ordered this ring based on those measurements. And when it first came, I happened to be like really bloated on a hot day, and it didn't fit, and I wanted to cry, but then I woke up the next day and it fit, so it's perfect. So let's go into Denim, which is a Vietnamese brand as far as I know, and their presentation is lovely and chic. Sometimes it's just the finer details, and I also think, like always in the world, exoticism is always going to make a brand successful. So anything that comes from a place that is not the Western gaze is also going to be, I think, marketable and successful in the future. But I'm not a trend predictor. I'm just saying things that I think are logical. And one thing about their scent samples is that the top is almost translucent, and then you have the transparent actual base. And I think that this is so chic, so chic, because usually the tops are black or white, but this little transparent thing, so chic. And then they have printed onto the glass the name of the fragrance, the volume, the fact that it's an eau de parfum, and then the name of the brand. And I love the font that they chose. These are so particular details, but I really appreciate something like that. And alongside that, they have labeled blotters for each fragrance, which makes it easier to sniff through. I have been wearing a couple of them, and I already have one that I love and one that is in theory good, but is not an instant love for me. So we can get into the sniff session properly. So first, the one that I think is the most popular one right now is white rice. And yeah, it's popular for a reason. First of all, I don't think this is very ricey in my opinion. That there is a steamed aspect of it, but to me this is more of an orris sandalwood with steam. And I love it and I want it right now. This is like a scent profile I'm really loving at the moment. Yeah, so good. White rice, 10 out of 10. Not that I actually do ranks because I don't think that they mean anything. I think if you smell hundreds of fragrances, because some of them have different nuances, something's going to be a 10 for a different reason, another thing is a 10. So I don't think that they mean anything to me. Although I don't think that they're completely useless. Next, we've got Monsoon Tea. This is very green. I see a leafiness to it, and some of the leafy greens often get a little bit buggy. There's also a fresh citric aspect to it as well. Now, I've smelled many green fragrances. I wouldn't say that this is tea adjacent to me in particular, but this is good. It's well constructed, but it doesn't blow my hair back. But that's only because I smelled hundreds of fragrances, thousands actually, and it's not necessarily doing something new to me. My green fragrance of the year so far is still Verdure by Racine. Now we have In the Garden. Oh yeah, we've got green stemminess, we've got deep florals in there. I haven't even read the description because I'm smelling a jasmine for sure, but I don't know what other florals are contained therein. Well, on the back of the box, it lets you know what ingredients are in the fragrances, but not the notes. Oh, this is the chapter 1 discovery set, by the way. I believe that they're coming out with something new as well, so stay tuned. But yes, In the Garden, must love jasmine. It's quite indolic, but it's not in a deep, skanky way. It's kind of, it does the thing that jasmine does. It's very natural smelling. I'll say that these are high quality. Because sometimes the deal breaker for me is how synthetic you are. But I also don't hate every single thing that's synthetic. Sometimes things work well as synthetics. Like the things that are more sticky and vanillic can be really good synthetic. Then we have Harvest Season. I'm getting a lot of rich citruses. There's something a little bit woody. Slightly watery and grassy. This to me is in the same arena as the Monsoon Tea. And this is something that I find typical of more Eastern. Oh, Monsoon Tea kind of has a cucumbery vibe now. Because I'm comparing the two, because to me they have a similar green citric vibe. But Harvest Season is more dense and more lush and more saturated, more vibrant. Monsoon Tea is more chilled. It's like a watercolory green, whereas Harvest Season is gouache, and it's like a sunset orange. More yellowy actually. Yeah, it's like a pale orange. And now we have Fuoco. Don't know what that means. Okay, so this one is fresher. It's leaning barbershop. It's aromatic. I definitely smell some lavender, I believe. But this to me is giving like a grassy version of a barbershop fragrance. It's really good. But anytime something is blue and barbershop-y, I kind of am disinterested. I do think a lot of, like if you're a guy looking to smell unique, but you haven't traveled the world of fragrance, I would recommend this. Because it feels familiar, but it's also a little bit different. Now we have Dalle. Oh, this is lovely. This is sweet floral. It feels fruity. It's rosy. It's rose. That's what I'm smelling. It's like a white rose. Again, but this is kind of in the realm of Une Rose by MFK. It's a viney, stemmy rose. It's bright and watery. It's like rose water, really. It's lovely. But now that I've really recognized what it is, I know it's not necessarily that special. Then we have something that's unlabeled because I lost the blotter because I've been playing around with these. This is one I really love. This one is another deep, smoky, vetiver-y kind of fragrance. So something that I love, obviously. It's called Through the Forest. And this is quite a departure from the rest of the collection. To me, this feels more, it's more dense, more deep. It's a completely different vibe. It's actually similar to Bois, actually, from Electimus. Yeah, you also have maybe some richer, like Gaiac wood in there, maybe oud as well, or an oud wood accord. Smoky, deep, rich, woody, completely different vibe from the rest of the collection, which is smart, because what I'm seeing here is kind of a watercolor collection, but this is like the black ink in the collection. So they have a cohesive vibe, but I would still say there's something for everybody. You've got the clean girl with the white rice. You've got In the Garden, that's more for the floral lover. For somebody who loves the fresh fragrances, you've got the citric and the tea-like fragrances. It's working well. This is really cleverly composed. Then we've got pho breakfast. I don't think I've ever eaten pho. But I've eaten many Asian noodle dishes with broth, but just not pho. But this, somebody once said that this is more like the toppings you put on pho, and I completely get that. There's something here that smells like coriander to me. Fresh herby leaves. It's also, again, watery and light and fresh. Definitely this is an aromatic. It's an aromatic to end all aromatic fragrances. There are not going to be a lot of people, I think, who want necessarily to smell like this, but for the person who is looking to smell like this, I think Maria will love this. Not my Maria, the top notes on TikTok, Maria Helen, because she loves a herby, fresh fragrance. So if you love something like L'eau Nature by Henrik Vipskov, very niche. Or I think From the Garden by Margiela, or if you love Rise by Gabar, you'll love Pho Breakfast. And then finally, Vietnamese coffee. So this is really photorealistic. To me, it kind of smells like instant coffee granules, but then you get a little bit of a caramelized milkiness, like you could think of condensed milk. And I wore this the other day in combination with, again, the other fragrance I can't tell you about, and it smelled really good together. But I don't think I would want to smell like coffee this much. It's like really strongly coffee-like. But I think people who love to smell like coffee and the smell of coffee will love this. I think that this is just like a technical feat. Like this is a technical marvel. Stunning. This is a fantastic house. I think you should sample this. Who would appreciate this? If you like lighter, fresh fragrances, although if you do prefer deeper scents, then I think you will appreciate some of the scents in here. If you are a lover of some of the Le Labos, if you're a lover of Aesop, I think you will appreciate this house. If you're a lover of the essential parfums, you will like this house. And this is not to say that they smell the same. I think that the people who have the sensibility to appreciate fresher, brighter, watery fragrances, you will love this. Especially the people who say that they don't like perfumey perfumes, which is, I think, my favorite aspect of this. You will appreciate this. They sent this to me, this discovery set, and I'm so happy that they did. This is very exciting. This is beautiful. From what I've seen of the bottles as well, they're cute. And so yes, my favorite of the bunch though, white rice. I am the woman I am. I love the white rice. It's so clean. I was afraid it was going to smell really rice-like because I do have fragrances that smell rice-like, but it's not that at all. It's conceptual. I love the steaminess. I love the powderiness. I love the cleanness of it. It's stunning. And it's not a fragrance that necessarily is so unique. You've never smelled anything like it. But I think that like L'Eau Papier by Diptyque is lucky it got released when it was, before people knew denim. So yes, I loved this sniff session. I loved smelling through this house. Beautiful presentation, beautiful packaging, so convenient to sample, and I think that you should get your nose on them. And whatever you do before you buy anything, you have to sample it. But as always, happy sniffing.